What's going on, Airflow family? Welcome to another episode of the Airflow podcast. I'm your host, Rickey Thomas. Hope everybody's been having a great week. Today, I have a special guest. His name is Dr. Martin Burgess. He's a husband, a father, educator, and also newly became an author. So we want to welcome Dr. Burgess to the show. Dr. Burgess, thank you for joining us today.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Anytime, sir, anytime. So I know one of the things that's always interesting to me is when I talk to educators and, I'm very interested as, one of the mountains that we're supposed to claim from the kingdom standpoint is the education. And, I've seen your passion in being an educator. So it's always intriguing, especially with the times changing. You and I are around the same age. So I know things in the educational system is definitely different. So I want to touch upon that. But you are, as I mentioned, a husband. You've been married for how long now?
It'll be 19 years in May.
19 years, and they still together. Father of two boys. Let's see. I know Naaman just turned what, 16?
17.
17. God. Y'all getting old, man. And Martin's what, 18, 19, 19?
He's 19.
19. Man, what you gonna do? That's what everybody
what do you mean? What my wife and I gonna do?
Yeah, what are y'all gonna do now? Because you about to be empty nesters soon. I just thought about that.
Yes, sir. We'll chase my wife around the house, man.
Hey, make it do what it do. I'm not mad at you on that one. Sure. That's cool though. But yeah, two great boys. I know you guys definitely marriage is blessed, and I've seen you guys just continue to grow. And I guess in your journey in becoming a teacher, and I want to talk about that because in looking through this, I never really thought about it before, but there's a big difference between teacher and educator. So we'll dig into that a little bit. But what inspired you to get into just the education field to begin with?
Well, since we're being very candid here, I had no intentions of being a teacher, actually.
Okay.
When I went to MTSU to pursue my degree, I initially went to school to become a physician.
Okay.
I wanted to go to internal medicine, and I ran into a class called comparative anatomy of vertebrae. And first test I got, well, that's an understatement, brother. I took the first test, got a 30% on it. That's out of 100. And he gave me a chance to take the test again. I took it again. The second time I studied harder than I did the first time, and I got a 50. And so I had to really think about, is this something I want to pursue? And I said, nah, this ain't worth it. It caused a lot of stress for me, so I let it go. And one of my professors, advisors, said, have you thought about teaching? Now, my mom has taught for 35 years. So I knew I knew what she went through. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that. But once I got into the program, I found it was really cool.
So it was kind of in your blood a little bit. You didn't want to do it at first, but when you got to doing it, you saw like, this might be my thing right here. This might be my niche.
Yeah. Summed up pretty well. I'm the only one of my siblings that actually went into the arena of education.
Okay. And it is funny because, you say you wanted to be a physician at first, and then you go into, it's a stark difference when we talk about going from a physician, a doctor, to a teacher, especially when you look at the salary analysis of it, and a huge difference. So it's just interesting that you did that. But as we'll talk further, it's been worth it, obviously. But was it like a shock for your family when you changed?
That's a good question. My mom was actually, surprisingly, my mom didn't want me to go into education.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Like,
all right. So here's the story. So My mother, as an educator, she said it's a very underappreciated profession, and there's a lot of stress that can come with it, depending on where you work, who your principal is, and your coworkers and whatnot. Just like any other job.
Right.
But it's the outside stuff, the political stuff that gives more of the pressure on teachers, educators, teachers, and staff. Because and we may go into this later, but there's a lot of politicians that make rules that have nothing to do with education, and it puts impact. It squeezes educators to start wondering why did they get into it, because of all of the other nonsense that have to do with education that has nothing to do with the actual betterment of the kid.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that's, I mean, every teacher has gone into education for students. They want to be impactful to their students and want to change the culture of whatever school they're in. It's the other stuff that's outside of that bothers them. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's always a lot of bureaucracy and red tape and stuff that gets in the way, especially, we were going to talk about this, we can get into this now. From the education standpoint, it's interesting because we talk about, and you hear it a lot, even politicians, they mention, and I'm not putting all on politicians, but just in general, you always hear about how important the role of teachers are in our society, but we don't seem to value them monetarily and even just the overall support. So it's hard, and you're not the only teacher that I've spoken with. I mean, I have several friends who are teachers, and they all tell the same story, especially when you're in the public sector. So you've been mainly in the public school sector, is that correct?
Yes, my entire career has been in public school. Yes.
So how long has that been?
Um, I'm in my 16th year.
So you've been in the 16 years. Your mom was in it 30. How many years is she in it?
36.
36 years. So she's retired now, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So 36 years she was in, you were in 16 years, and it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have the same story in terms of how you feel about teaching, and or not teaching, but the everything that comes with it, the pressures, the stress, and all of that. You guys seem to have that same mindset with it. Is that correct?
My mom and I.
Yes.
Yes.
You see her point of view now that you've been in it for some time, where she was warning you about, you see it.
Yes.
But, I'm saying that because it's interesting. You've been in it for 16 years, and you said that most educators get in it for the students. So it tells me the passion that you have for educating and empowering our youth. But there's so many teachers and educators like you who have walked away or just quitting, going into other things, changing their fields because they don't have the support. Obviously, there are some other things that are going on with kids not having support from home or getting support from parents. So there's other aspects of it now more than it's ever been. But it's just kind of disheartening because you have people who are really passionate about wanting to come in and educate, not just teach, because they're, teaching and educating is two different things. And so from your perspective, I want to talk about that, because I see you always list that you're an educator. From your perspective, what's the difference between an educator and a teacher?
Okay. That's a man. You asking good questions. All right. So, all right. So a teacher, and I don't want to offend anyone, but hey,
No, I mean, it's your
hey,
perspective.
I'm good. I'm good, man. So
16 years in, you are an expert at this point. So speak on it.
yeah. All right. So essentially teachers are, they know the material, they can give you the material, but they don't have the art of how to give the material. Teaching is an art form, and how you give information to people and adjust your way of seeing their view to get them to understand it is an art form, and not every person understands how to do that. For instance, in college, I have a lot of teachers, professors, a lot of teachers, and some of them don't really know how to teach. They have information, they can give it to you, but they don't know how to relay it all that well. Whereas an educator knows how to reach the student at a point where at a point of their need, to help them understand the information, even if it means adjusting their tactic as an educator or as a teacher to fit their audience. And so that takes skill, that takes effort, that takes understanding the person. And teaching really doesn't do that. That's just giving you information and expecting you to take that information and using it to excel in a course or pass a test or something like that. So educators are skilled tacticians at what they do. If I had to bring this down to it, I would say that a teacher is a person if I'll take it in a military term, a teacher is one as a foot soldier that knows how to take care of their business. You know, they carry their M16 or whatever. But a educator is a sharpshooter. They know exactly where to hit, know exactly what to do and when to do it. So I don't know if that.
No, I mean, no, I think because I did some, looking up because I was like, there obviously there's a difference. And I was like, well, let me look it up because I've never really looked it up before. And one of the things that I saw was that, teachers teach, that when they teach, they instruct. Educators kind of give the intellectual, moral, and social instruction. So it's more than just instructing you on the specific assignment. It's more than just that. It's encouraging growth versus the teachers just kind of meeting goals. So, it's more in depth. Like you said, it's an art form, and that is something that is true because you with art, with everything else, you have to adapt the times. You have to adjust, and like you said, meet the students' needs where they are. And I think that might be some of the frustration with children today, because I think you have some teachers who don't adapt, who don't adjust, who aren't looking at it from an art form perspective, and they're not reaching the kids because they're still teaching the same way they did back in 1980 something, it's sad because I think, from the student's perspective, they're missing out on a lot. And it's not because, it doesn't mean the teacher is bad. It's just there isn't a connection there. I always liken it to a coach. A good coach is always able to get the most out of their players because it's not just they have certain levels of things that they tolerate. They have things that they accept, and but they also have to understand that they have to adjust, they have to adapt, they have to understand the way the world is and the way kids are. So if you think about a program like Duke, and Coach K just, he's retiring this year. He's been coaching for like almost 50 years or something crazy like that. And you say, well, how does a person like that last all that long and be successful? Not just last a long time, but be successful. And he mentioned that one of the things that he was always able to do, or he had to learn how to do, was adjust. There were certain things that he just wasn't going to tolerate, and he kept a fine line there. But he had to understand that times were changing, and to compete, and to reach these kids at different levels, you have to get to them, understand them, build relationships and things like that, versus just, I'm just delivering, here's the playbook, you follow this or you're not going to play, and this is it. Same thing with teaching. I know even when I was in school, if a teacher just handed me a syllabus, says, here's your syllabus, and I'll go over some stuff in class and that's it, there's no connection, I wasn't really interested in that class. And I'm sure you've experienced that as a teacher, or in being in school, learning and going through that process. So, talk about that. What are your feelings on, teachers who teach versus those who actually are preparing? Like, they don't use the same lesson plan year in, year out. They're always adjusting things. What's your take on that?
Well, okay. Okay. So when I first got into teaching, I didn't understand how to teach. I had to learn trial by fire. And I went into a school, and I'm gonna get to your answer. Yeah. I went to a school where I had to basically get order first, because they ran the other teacher out, throwing stuff at them and whatnot. Inner city school in Nashville. And come to find out that he had a doctorate. My understanding of it, he had a doctorate, and he taught I want to say physical science, if I remember right. And so they ran him out of there because he never tried to have any relationship with the students. And when I came into the classroom, one of the first things I did is I wanted to know who they were. I wanted to know where they were from. I wanted to know if they had siblings there. I wanted to know if they had both parents in the home, along with the curriculum. And what the students started doing was connecting to me as a person. And when I did that, they were able to hear from me as a teacher. When I see teachers, especially new ones coming in, or old ones who have kind of gotten to the point where they don't want to do it anymore, they've kind of become jaded. When you see those those teachers in those positions, in those situations, it really is detrimental to the student. And it upsets me to the point where I'm like, there are other things you can do with your life if you don't want to do this anymore. It's not just a paycheck. When you're looking at little Susie who's struggling in mathematics, and you got Miss Johnson who can reach her, and she's doing well in that mathematics, and then she comes to a English class where the teacher just says, sit down, take the syllabus and do your work, as you said, then she's going to have a connection to this math teacher, whereas English is going to be, she's falling behind, and the teacher sometimes will put the onus on the student saying, hey, you're not doing your job, blah, blah, blah. Well, we got to make connections. You got to make connections. Now, there are times we make connections and the student still doesn't do right. That's kind of the job.
And I can see, I mean, in every situation, it's just like managing people at work. You can make all the connections being a manager, and you just have people who are going to do what they want to do. And then there's consequences to that, on that side. But, like you said, the goal is always to try to make the connection, have to at least make the attempt.
All right. So I taught in some of the toughest schools in Nashville. Okay. And I'm not going to try to give you my whole dossier, but I worked at one school in particular, Maplewood High. And at the time when I was there, is one of the toughest schools in Nashville. And I used to live like maybe 20 minutes from there, not far from there. I lived in the same neighborhood that kids grew up, or kids that went there. So I understood where they were coming from. And without making connection with them, they can smell crap from a teacher a mile away, and they're gonna give them the business, and it's gonna be a really long year. But when you actually are real with them, they appreciate that a whole lot more, and they'll receive from you. Okay, so as an educator, I've had to learn how to talk down people, how to encourage people, how to bring them back to themselves. I've had to learn all of those things and change who I am to fit the kid that I have. It's not an easy thing to do, but if you're willing to put in the work and see the change in a kid, then it's worthwhile. So yeah.
Now that from the work that you're doing, and you realize that, which is good. But does the school system invest in teachers in terms of continuous learning modules, things like that, to keep them fresh and updated with different, equipping them with tools and techniques of how to, adjust with today's times? Is that something that is usually made available?
Yes, but it's slow.
Okay.
In the education system, it's very, very slow. For instance, what you saw in the COVID year, how chaotic it was for teachers and students and whatnot to try to go distance learning. Well, colleges have been doing that for years. We don't have the technology ready to deal with stuff like that. I did a study quite a few years ago that talked about the history of education in the United States. And really, the original form of education was supposed to be like more Socratic, where you talk to the kids talk back to you, you share your life experiences, they get that, and they still can get all the curriculum information from the teacher from a natural point of view or a life point of view. Well, when the Industrial Revolution kicked in, the education system came to more of I need you to do this, this, and this to fit a person coming into like a assembly line, where you got to learn how to follow instructions. Do this, do this, do this. I don't think it's ever come out of that. And so, in some regards, what we have to do as educators is, we have to take what is given to us we have to take what the system is giving us and how to teach, what to teach, and all that, and make it fit our kids, regardless of the technology we have. Because I don't honestly believe that the technology is going to keep up. We're so far behind. For instance, I'm sorry to laughing, man, but we have these laptops, man, and they're Chromebooks. And Chromebooks are, as you know, very limited.
Yeah, they are.
And so that's what we have as students. Now we do have them in our classroom, but they're Chromebooks. They're not laptops. We just got those this year or last year. We just got them at Laverne High School. And Laverne High School has been in existence since 1980 something. We just got laptops in classrooms last year.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's why I've had questions of why did I, what reason did I pull my kids out of public school, and the public schools, that zone that we were in for the high school, I mean, it's a good high school, but there's just disadvantages, and one of the things I was going to say to you is, you mentioned, kind of having an assembly line approach to how kids are being treated in the system today, for especially mostly public schools. One of the things we liked about the private school that we moved our kids into is the fact that the teacher-student ratio is low. So your teachers and students can have that more, it's like 10 to 1 or less. So if you got 10 kids to one teacher, you can have more moments of that one-on-one interaction and building that, building the relationship with the kids. It does make it challenging from people that I've talked to, and I'll get your take on it. When you've got 35 kids per class that you teach, and you got class sizes of like 1,000 kids in there, it's like, well, how do you make connections when the school is just full and you can't really take the time to get to everybody you want to get to? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, student teacher ratio has gotten better over the years. When I first started teaching, I had a class where I had 37 students in there.
Wow. Like a college class.
Yeah, it was busting out the seams, man. And it was a very stressful environment. And it was really hard to reach kids, and there were kids I didn't reach. There's no possible way I could do that. And now we've gotten better, where some of the classes I have are 16, 17, but they're ESL students, or they have IEPs where their learning disabilities, their language barriers cause me to have to spend a little bit more time with them. So I had to move a little slower. And I'm supposed to have like a teacher aide, but because of the whole substitute teaching issue that we can't get subs in there, my teacher aide has to cover classes from time to time. So I don't really have that. So it's just, the whole thing is just it's not a great situation. But the ratio has gotten better.
That's good to hear. I mean, it's improving, but yeah.
I want to say something about what you said, and I can really appreciate that. For years, it was a thought with public educators versus private educators, and how there was such a difference, and Really, anyone who has a desire to go into the private sector or take their kids into a private school, there are strong advantages there, and I can't hate on that. That's just something that is a true statement. Something we have to, that as an educator, we got to be okay with that, saying, look, it's their prerogative, and it's an advantage for their kids, because not everybody has that opportunity. And if you do have that opportunity, man, it's best to take it. Because I've been asked that before, like, what do you think about private school versus public schools? Yeah, there's a lot more freedom at a private school that a public school just does not have, and it has there are some advantages to being in a private school that a public school just doesn't have. I mean, and that's just the truth.
Yeah, I mean, it's a private sector. I mean, there's certain things that they don't have to deal with, but it comes at a premium to parents because you have to pay for it. So, it's definitely not a free thing, but it has its pros and cons, and that's why I would always go back to the fact that there are great public school systems, there are great public schools, there are great teachers, educators that are in these schools. And some of them choose to stay in the public sector just because they feel like they can get closer with the inner city kids, help out in that community and really be a part of that. So, for me, that's why I look at, someone like you who's been doing it for a while, and you can really see the passion in you teaching. But as I mentioned earlier, now we're starting to see more and more people move away from teaching. People are becoming very frustrated. And these are people who are passionate educators. They're just like, I can't do this anymore. So, from your perspective, how does that make you feel 16 years in the game, very passionate about, working with students, and you're seeing things on the news where schools are closing because teachers are like, I'm done, and they don't have enough to come in and help.
I just talked about this today, actually, with a coworker of mine. In Rutherford County, which I could speak to, there are over 100 plus openings as far as teachers. 100 plus openings. That's
crazy.
That happens from time to time, but not at this rate and this early. Now we're in where are we in? March?
Mm-hmm.
There's already 100 plus in March. Normally, the numbers get high around April when teachers are kind of trying to figure out where they want to go. But yeah, it's already 100 plus in March, which means that the numbers should go up by the time May hits. And
is this mostly teachers, or is it teachers, administrators? It's all across the board.
Just teachers, man. Yeah, wow. They're teachers. Because there's another section you can look at for actual administrators. This is teachers.
Wow.
They are leaving the profession for various reasons. Some of them because it's not what they thought it was. Some because of administration, they don't not get along with it. But the overwhelming majority that I've learned about from talking to some of them is it's just the lack of support from parents, from the community. And after COVID, when COVID hit, it exposed a lot.
And I want to get into that too.
It exposed a lot. And teacher was like, you know what, you can have this. I don't get paid enough for this. I'm out. And that's unheard of. And this is not just a Tennessee thing. This is a nationwide crisis.
Yeah. I've seen it all around nation. I mean, it's on national news. I mean, you're seeing, literally teachers walking out, like throwing up their hands, like, I'm done. I say it's crazy, but that they're just leaving not leaving the school system, but just leaving the profession that they've worked at, built a reputation on, and a lot of them are passionate. I mean, that's the thing that I want to, kind of get rid of that or debunk that myth that, teachers nowadays don't care, because you kind of get that narrative thrown out there. I'm like, no, teachers care, but they're up against so many things. It's hard. You got to, if you're stressed out, depressed, if you're feeling beat down, just like anybody else with a job, you're going to want to get out of that profession or get out of that environment as much as you can. Because, as a teacher, I don't want anybody teaching my kids if they have mental health struggles, and that's just being real. I mean, I don't, just like you don't want a pilot flying the plane and they're struggling with their mental health, and you never know, you just don't want that. And I think that's why now, and this is what I was going to lead to with the whole pandemic. How do you think the pandemic has shifted the educational system?
Okay. I believe that in the education arena, they expected things to go back to normal. Whereas high stakes testing, teachers would still have the same, as you've used the term, passion to do what they do. Because we got some love for a while when schools were closed, saying, teachers are so important, blah, blah, blah. We felt that love that lasted about good 4 months. And then it was like, hey, get back in there. And so I believe that everybody expected things to be the same, but there's no such thing anymore. There is a new norm, and I don't believe that the powers that be understand this. And they're still putting the same amount of pressure on teachers in a position where it's unnecessary struggle. You know what I'm saying? Like right now, we shouldn't be thinking about high stakes testing. Just shouldn't. EOC shouldn't matter to us, but the end of course exam shouldn't matter. ACTs, I get that because that's a college thing. But state testing should not matter at all. Why?
Or whatever it is now.
Yeah, none of that should matter. They say, you know what? We're just trying to maintain our teachers' sanity. So let's give them the most support, and the best support they could give is taking some of the load off. We're in crisis mode, but we're still trying to move the vehicle forward. But the engines that are making the thing go, the educators, are struggling, which means that the boat and the vehicle is not moving well, and no one wants to address it. And so when you hear on the news that teachers are walking out or whatnot, and we are, and I'll be transparent with you. I even thought about coming out of the profession. And I applied for learning and development positions at different companies,
which is
only
sad.
To see.
It's sad because I know how passionate you are and as good of a teacher that you are. So to hear someone like you saying, I'm ready to go, I'm tired of it, it just paints a kind of a grim picture on our system, the educational system as a whole, just to hear this. So, wow.
And I don't know how it's going to be fixed. Honestly, I'm thinking that I think, and this is me speaking, I believe that teachers are fed up with the status quo and that no one has an answer. And since no one has an answer, we're like, I'll just go somewhere else. Even if it's a job I don't really love, I'll get paid more. At least that will satiate my discomfort. Like if I looked into a job for learning and development, and they make some of them make six figures, and I'm like, yo, man. So I may not. I would have to travel. I want to say the job I applied to, I didn't get it, by the way, but the job I applied to would have said I tried to travel about 40% of the job. I was travel about 40% as long as COVID was not restricted. And I talked to my wife and I said, what do you think about that? And she said, I don't know. But then she saw the numbers. They were talking about paying $135,000 a year. Well, you don't mind traveling 40% if you make 135.
Yeah, that's now let's talk about that a little bit.
So it's a different thing, man. And they don't have answers. And so here's what they decided to do with this. And since you asked me, man, I know all this stuff, man. I'm gonna give it to you.
No, that's what I want to hear.
They decided to give, and this is Rutherford, they're giving $5,000 bonuses and certain positions in teaching to come into the education arena. They've also created a program to get EAs, which is educational assistants, to be licensed to teach. It's a program that speeds up their process to come into the classroom. But what they have not done is done anything to help maintain the ones they got.
I was going to say, so what they're getting you in the door. They want to get you in the door.
Yeah, so it's like rebuilding a basketball team by getting draft picks. Yeah. That typically doesn't work.
And they're not giving them the tools to grow and develop and things like that.
No, you don't want a whole building full of rookie teachers, do you?
No. And to be honest, some of them may, because they come in with fresh eyes and they may be gung-ho. And so it's good to have balance. You have kind of your veteran teachers, just like a team, you have your veteran players, you've got your rookies, and you put them together and you can build something special, with that, because you've got some folks who've been in the trenches, and then you got people who are full of energy and they're ready to do a lot of things and take over the world. So when you have that balance, it's great. but I guess just going back to one of the things you mentioned about with the standardized testing, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of that standardized testing, is what determines some of the money that schools receive. Is that correct?
You are a very astute man. Actually, you are in the minority of understanding this stuff. Okay, so I'm glad you did your homework, sir. All right, standardized testing, it is still doing what it initially was supposed to do. It's really to set up how much money goes where. Okay. Like for instance, standardized testing says that, and based off of standardized testing and the earnings of family that go there, I can't blanking on the word I'm looking for, but how much the parents as a collective earn as far as in the kids, not poverty level. That's not the word I'm looking for.
Household income or something like that.
Yes, yeah, something like that. Where you have to do free and reduced lunch.
Right.
Those two things together. If you have low scores and you have a high free and reduced lunch, then you have what is called you can potentially have what is called a Title I school. And a Title I school can get more funding to help bring those kids up to the learning levels that they need. Whereas if you have a school like Central, who doesn't have high free and reduced lunch area, and they have really high learners, they don't get as much money to do things as they want. However, here's the caveat. With Title I money, they tell you what you can and cannot do. Okay. And whereas like Central doesn't have to worry about that. There are no governing bodies over them saying, you got to do this, 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 and this, and this. Have you tried this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Their scores are fine, so they leave you alone. Okay. Not all money is good money. So Title I is good. Yeah. Title I is good to have, but you got a lot of stuff. When you got that, you got more of the superintendents coming to your building. You got the mayor coming to your building. You got all these things you must do to maintain that money. And if you don't, you can get it snatched away. The teachers have to make sure that the kids fill out the free and reduced lunch forms, all the rest of that stuff. It's just it's a racket, man. So
sounds like it. Wow.
State testing technically doesn't need to exist at all. They do that to do what you said as far as the money and to grade schools. Okay, the school's grade is based off of the state test, and the lower the scores are getting, the less effective that school is. But it's a lie. Okay, it's just numbers. It's a lie. You cannot say a school is not effective based off of a score by itself. You have to look at the whole scope of things. Are kids growing? Are they thriving as far as social emotional? Are they doing well with interaction with other students? They may not be academically astute, because that sometimes happens. Because you look at a standardized test, you got to think about it. What if a person just came from another country? They still got to take the same test.
Right.
They're not going to do as well as a person that lived in this country all their lives.
Yeah.
But the numbers will say that they should have. Now, like Laverne High gets a lot of growth, and growth is that we take them from low to higher than they were. But you, as the parent, will never know that. All you will see is that we're shooting below where all the other schools are. They don't tell you about growth.
Gotcha.
But you look at Central, you're like, well, Central must be really good. Stewart's Creek may be really good. Blackman may be really good, depending on the scores. But you're just only seeing a part of the picture.
And a lot of times those scores honestly, is where how people look at, do I want to move into that district? Do I want my kid to go to that school? Because they look at score.
That's exactly what it is.
Which is interesting. And just thinking about that, because I was, my wife and I were talking about, how I think it was 2 years ago before the pandemic started, that last year, I guess 2019, that full school year ended in 2019. And, Christian, our youngest, his teacher was basically, we had a long conversation with her, that he was like in third grade or something. And the question we had, is why were the schools having to focus so much the latter part of the year? Like everything was focused on preparing for the, I guess, TN ready. It's not TN,
That's right.
TN ready.
That's right.
And, it's like, okay, well, are you learning this, learning that? Well, yeah, she said, we tailor and this is what she said. She said, we tailor our classes to the first part of the year is just kind of, we take some time to do work, go over things from last year, kind of, reviewing some stuff. We take some time to teach them things that they need to know for that grade level. But by the time they come back from Christmas break, towards the middle of third quarter or something around there, all of our focus from there until pretty much the end of the year when they take the test is the TCAP or Tennessee Ready.
That's right. That's
And
right.
it is not necessarily things that are preparing them to go to the next grade level. It's just things that are going to help them to score well on that test.
Yep.
And it was crazy. It was like to the point where we had to ask her, it was like, so should we, go out there, get worksheets and different things that's focusing on third grade work to prepare and fourth grade stuff to prepare him, because she was like, yeah, because our focus stuff that he's going to be learning is stuff that fifth graders may learn, some of that Tennessee Ready stuff. It's stuff that they may never really see and that we would normally teach. But we have to teach these things. We have to prepare them. We're being forced to do it. So I thought that was very disheartening, because you're not really preparing your kids to move on. You're preparing them to take a test. And that test is only for the benefit of the school to continue to make money, which, I want teachers to get paid and all that good stuff. I don't want schools to close, but they're like, we're forced to have to do this. We have no choice. This is what we've been told to do. And I thought that was just so disheartening to hear that that's where we're at today. We're governed by standardized testing, and those scores is what determines, like you said, determines how effective the school is.
Yeah, I mean, therein lies the truth, sir. I have, when I did my dissertation, one of the things I said was standardized tests have always been, one, biased, and two, ineffective in showing the growth of a student. Because when you're taking a test like a 10 Ready or an EOC or even an ACT, you're taking a test based off of what you understand that you've accumulated from years until that point. And but one day you could have a bad day, or you could have not eaten that morning or whatever. And that one time can show a glimpse of what a student knows, but it doesn't take in consideration what they went through that day or whatever.
Right.
Standardized testing is a farce, and if it could be gotten rid of, as you know, it's been in existence even when we was in school. Yeah. It's very archaic. The best way to know if a student knows something is to either have them teach it to someone else or to build it. That's really the way to know if someone knows the material. Okay, not by a test. Okay, it's not a test. Not the matter of fact. Okay, let me ask you a question. If everyone got a driver's license, if everyone got a driver's license based off of the idea that, if everyone got a driver's license based off of the idea of passing a test but never drive a car, how well would people do well on the streets? Probably not well. You got to perform. Right. You got to have some kind of performance that says, hey, I know how to do this.
Right.
That's the problem. We have not gotten to the point where education says performance based. It's still standards based and not standards based, but test based. Okay, we can say whatever we want to say, but that's what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, I know for a fact that there are some kids who are not, they do great in homework and assignments, classwork, labs, and everything else, and they get to a test and they may not be the best test takers, especially when it comes to standardized tests. And I say that with ACTs and SATs. I know people who were 4.0 students, did great.
Yep.
Just didn't score well in ACT and yep. ACT and SAT, and they had to take remedial classes in college to start off because of that, even though their GPAs were high as I don't know what. I'm like, how was that? And they got people who had low GPAs but scored high on the test, and they got scholarships. You're like, how is this? Make it make sense. But again, it's based off of the test, the standardized test. So it's like, you got your one shot. You do good. You set yourself up.
I've had to teach students how I taught them how to play the game. Being an educator, I taught my sons how to play the game. Martin and Naaman, and I tell any student that wants to hear it, I'll say, okay, the best way to get what you want out of a school as far as the money for college is you got to get that ACT score right. And you got to maintain it. You got to maintain a good GPA, but get that ACT score right. I said, they say, well, how do I do that? Can I study for it? Whatever. You really can't study for the ACT. What you got to do is you got to study how to take the test.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the knowledge base that you have. You got to learn how to take the test. The quicker you have, the quicker you can read, the faster you answer a question with some level of logic, the better you'll do. And I know some kids that have gotten like 32s on ACTs, but they have zero common sense whatsoever. And wasn't good students. They're good test takers, like you said. I did not do well on ACT when I took it. I got a 16. I took it again, got a 17. I didn't do well because I wasn't a good test taker. No one taught me how to take the test. Because I thought if the ACT really wants to show you what you know, we should be teaching a class on the information that the ACT will have on it.
Right.
But it doesn't work that way. So the stuff I teach on biology is not on the ACT, period.
No.
So it makes you wonder, why do we teach biology?
Right.
So
it's not on that, it's not on the tendency rating, it's not on any of that stuff, so
it is not.
And that again is like, so what are we really trying to prepare our kids for? What are we just glorified babysitting the kids just to say they're going to school, they're doing this, but we're not really preparing them for what they need?
There's some preparation there. If the thing about education that I had to learn about, the thing about being a student and a teacher, I had to learn about the hard way. And I teach it to my students. I said, being in school is not so much as how much information you can get, because you do need to get that information, learning skills, reading skills, math skills. It is, can you take this information you've gotten and go all the way through and finish what you started? Can you go from kindergarten to 12th grade, do well enough to say you know this material and finish? Can you do that? If you can't, then everything you do will always have that, I don't know if I can finish. You may have that quit mentality, and that's not something I teach. I preach that at work all the time. Like, don't quit. Quitting is not an option, because testing can really dishearten you. It really can. It's demoralizing. Let's say you take an ACT, you get a 15. Well, the college that you want to go to takes you at a 23. You look at the numbers, you're not dumb. You'll say 15 to 23, man, there's no shot. So why should I even do it?
Yeah, it does become discouraging.
It does. And that's not what it's supposed to do. It's not what it should do.
Right.
ACTs, I'm not going to go into the whole bias and race stuff, right. But it was, how to, yeah. So and it hasn't changed.
No, I know it hasn't. I know it hasn't. I mean, just like my 15-year-old, he's a 10th grader, Trey. He took the PSAT, and then he just took the ACT for the first time, and he was just like, he's like, I don't even know where they got a lot of this stuff from. I haven't learned any of this stuff. I don't know. I told him, I said, what we want you to do is take it early so you can see what the test is like. And then we're going to work on, preparation for, like you said, it is a method to it. It's not about what it's how to take it. And one of the things I've been hearing about, just sidetrack, is people talking about, if you get your kids into speed reading courses, that will help you on taking, these standardized tests. Like,
isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, you're like, speed reading is like, oh. I wish I would have known that. I mean, I did pretty good on my ACT. It wasn't bad. I got like a 23, I think, but I took it a couple of times. But if I would have known that, I could have been like, getting a 30 or something and getting all kind of scholarships to school. Like, just take speed reading. I had the little books and everything that everybody had, and studying that for weeks and weeks at a time, and racking my brain, and it still didn't make a huge difference.
But Rick, think about this. How many parents don't know this stuff, especially those of African-American descent? How many do not know this?
There's a lot. I know.
Right. And so therefore, if you look at the stats, when I looked at the stats at my school, the lowest ACT scores are coming from African-American male students. African-American male students are getting the lowest scores. The highest scores come from, if I remember right, it's Asian, and I'm not trying to be joking, but we don't have that many.
This is data. I mean, there's data behind it.
Yeah. Asians, white females, white males, Hispanics. Hispanics and African Americans are pretty much even, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, wow, man, this stuff has not changed. It's because we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Knowledge is power.
Man, it makes a difference, man. I told my son how to take the test. He said, this stuff's not there. And we know it's not there. I said, don't go into high school and trying to learn how to take an ACT from the high school courses is useless. You have to learn how to take the test. And I mean, they actually have a class at Laverne. It's called ACT Prep. It's a class that you take.
Just to focus
just to take that. That's all they do.
Yeah, and I've seen, I mean, there's a lot of companies who have popped up too that offer like online courses and things like that. Yep. And the whole thing is to learn how to take standardized tests, the SAT, ACT, prep for that. And it was interesting because during the pandemic, or at least the first part of it, some schools were bypassing the SAT and ACT just because obviously, you couldn't get into a classroom and take the test because of shutdowns, and they didn't have it set up online, which I have a feeling they're going to figure out a way to do it online.
Eventually.
Yeah. I mean, there's already the technology there. I've seen it for certain certifications for like real estate licenses or insurances and things like that. They actually can take them now at home, and they use your camera. They take over your computer. You can't pull up browsers and stuff like that. So there's ways to do it now. It's just, are the school systems going to invest? And, obviously, when we talked about with the pandemic situation and how it's shifted things, it's done it in business as well, in corporate America, because a lot of people they were working at home. They had different flexibility. They were like, the companies are like, okay, now it's okay to come back into the building. They're like, I don't want to go back. I'm looking for remote jobs. I want to be at home, or I want to have that flexibility. And teachers, I know, felt the same way for a lot. Like, I really don't want to be around some of these snotty-nosed kids all day.
Yeah.
The parents were like, get rid of, go, please get out of here. But, teachers were like, no, we kind of like this being at home thing and teaching, the ones that could. I know some schools, they made the teachers come into the school to do the virtual lessons, but nobody was there. I'm like, what sense does that make? Technology is going to be the same, unless you have an environment that is distractive and you can't really do anything. That's different, but
that's just called control, man. Sometimes it's just like, that's
yeah. Well, I'm gonna get off with this part of it. I want to take some time because I can go into education. I know you can go in and
oh man, I can blow your mind of stuff I know, man.
And I'm probably gonna have you come back on here because I definitely want to deep dive a little bit more into just education as a whole, because it's always interesting to me. It's like a double-edged sword, and you hear it's a big hypocrisy. Honestly, it's like, we love teachers. They're the most important thing, but then, we're not setting them up to be successful, which is not setting our kids up. So I'm going to move on because I want to talk about your book. So
thank you.
Your book is called In My Father's Image, Living Your Best Life Through the Word of God. And you have it there. I will have mine on Friday. What inspired you to first become an author? Not just write the book, but just to be an author. What inspired you to do that?
Rick, I had no intention of publishing this book.
Okay.
I had no intentions. It was a way for me to heal. I had a lot of anger over the years. So you may not know, but my father and my mom divorced when I was around 8 years old. And they really split up when I was about 8, but the divorce was finalized when I was 12, but he wasn't in the house during that time.
He was already.
Yeah, he was already gone. And now he was there for my brothers, both my older brothers, but my sister and I was kind of lost in a lurch, left in a lurch. He would sometimes come visit me. Sometimes he wouldn't. Sometimes he would take us out. Sometimes he wouldn't. Sometimes he would say he'll be there, but then he wouldn't show up. The same stuff you hear from other, situations such as mine.
Right.
And I was, when I had my son, Martin, my firstborn, I was terrified because I didn't really know what it meant to be a father because I didn't really have a good one. And so I started writing this book to help me heal so I can know how to deal with him. And as I started putting pen to paper, and it took years to write it, man, I was writing it it's not even a thick book. There's just a lot of stuff I had to get out.
Yeah.
And I put it kind of as a memoir, really. And my wife asked me, she said, when are you going to publish this? And I was like, what? Please, I'm not publishing this. I don't want to put that out there. I don't want nobody to know this happened. I don't want to make my dad seem like he's a bad guy. I don't want any of that. And so years, and she would keep reminding me, when are you going to publish this? When are you going to publish this? When are you going to publish this? And then I ran into Sister Griffith, and I told her, she had published her first book. And I was like, hey, I have something. I'm not sure if it's worth publishing, but I want you to take a look at it. And she's like, I can help you publish it. She read the rough draft. There was a lot of I was just venting. Yeah. And she said, you may have something here. And so I had to take some stuff out, of course, to make it more publishable and whatnot. But the essence of what I had to say is still there. And I had no intentions of doing it. It was a way for me to heal. And a way for me to.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was just a way for me to heal, man, and get all this stuff out that I had since I was a young man. When you don't have your dad around, man, it's not an easy thing. And some people don't understand it. They'll say, you had your brothers and whatnot, your uncles, but it's nothing like my dad. Yeah. So when my dad, he didn't show up my graduations.
Wow.
So he didn't graduate. He didn't show me my graduation in the high school. He wasn't there. He said he was there, but I never saw him. My undergrad, he wasn't there. He said he was there, but I never saw him. My master's, he wasn't there. And my doctorate, he came to the house. He went to my son's graduation, but he couldn't stay for mine, which I was fine with at that point. By that point, I'm like, I'm okay, but I'm glad you came. He couldn't stay and he left, but he said, I'm proud of me.
But you saw his presence. His presence was there that time. So
yes,
it was different from saying I was there, but you didn't see me,
So yeah, that was the way I had to, man. I had to heal, man. I didn't realize how much that affected me, Rick. I really didn't. We both had the same man of God, and I really couldn't even see him as my spiritual father because I wasn't trying to hear what he had to say sometimes.
Yeah, like, he's talked about that. I mean, you guys have been open, about just that whole dynamic, which is, which I get, and I think from your perspective, it sounds like the original intent for the book was not really a book, but just a diary of you just getting your thoughts on paper.
Yep.
But sometimes that's some of the best work, raw emotion, and obviously you said you had to clean it up a little bit to make it more palatable for some folks, but I can definitely appreciate that because I was fortunate enough to grow up with my father in my life, and I know the power of having him even today, in my life, just when he comes to visit, just when he's around the kids, it's a different mindset. In our society, we've kind of gotten to the point where, it's almost like fathers aren't important.
No, they are important.
No, they are. As I say, when I talk to someone in your position, and in your situation, you hear it, and I'm guessing that's where this book is really going to lead readers through, just understanding what that is, but understanding, my father as in God the Father.
Yes, I will say this. There's a part in my book that if you don't mind, I'm gonna just kind of read this to you.
Please do.
Bit. Please. And do. if I get emotional, forgive me. Okay.
No, please do.
So
take your time.
My granddad my granddad, um, he was a man's man. And
Hmm.
when my dad left, my granddad always checked on me. And
Is this your mom's dad or
that's
your?
my mom's dad. Yes, I never
Okay.
met my dad's dad. He already passed away before I was born.
Okay. Okay.
And my granddad, he would ask me, how am I doing? Um, he would always say, hey, it didn't work out with your mama and your daddy, but he still loves you. He wanted to always have me connected to my dad. But I mean, when he passed a few years back, uh, it took me to being that 8-year-old boy again.
Having that man, that male figure, somebody that close in your life.
He was gone, and
Yeah.
I didn't know how to handle that, man. And so, man, sorry.
Hey, no, this raw. I mean, look. You don't
Um,
have to apologize, though.
so he
Please
was,
don't.
man, he was gone, and I'm like, who do I have now? I always had him, but I didn't know, who did I have? And
Mhm.
so I published a book after he died, and because I didn't want anybody to really see this book at first, but I finally published it after him, and I wrote this to my dedications, and so one of the things is I said, to my grandparents, Algie and Wilma Patrick, y'all show me what a loving marriage and family can and should be. My granddad was a man of God. He was a man that meant what he said what he meant, and he loved his family unconditionally. Now he was a hard man, but he was a good man, and that's all I wanted to be. Is
Yeah.
I just want to be because I am kind of hard sometimes. I understand that, but I get that honest. But I always want to be a good man, and it just him, him dying. Just I didn't know, when you have somebody that close to you, you don't think they ever die. You don't think about that. And so it actually, when publishing this, it helped me to heal from that too. You know, um, I went to a space of slight depression, man, when my granddad passed, because I mean I still always had him, you
Yeah.
know.
He was somebody to
Uh,
lean on. You've got, things to talk about as a man, that you can only talk to another man about, you had that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny. He died of cancer. He had um, I forget exactly which kind of cancer. It'll come to me. Prostate. He died of prostate cancer. And but even when he was going through that whole ordeal, losing weight and all the rest of that stuff, he was still as sharp as he always was. And he would walk around in a little scooter thing because he couldn't really walk well. So he had a little scooter thing he was going with, and then until he got into a wheelchair. And he asked me three things. One, am I working? Because he like, a man don't work, don't eat. That's just his thing.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Two, am I taking care of my family? And I would always say, yes, sir. He said, three, you still loving God? I said, I sure am. Those are the three things. He said, if you keep God first, you'll be fine. Everything will work out. And that was, and when he, I wish he got a chance to see me graduate with my doctorate, because he always thought I would do something like that when I didn't think I could do it myself.
He saw it. He saw it for sure. Yeah, he
Yeah.
definitely saw it.
So
Well, you know
yeah,
what? I can say, knowing you and being around you, you definitely embody what he taught.
thank you.
Seeing you especially seeing with the boys, you are, I see the sternness, like you said your grandfather was, but I also see the loving, like, okay, I may be hard on you, but this is why.
Mm-hmm.
I may be like this, but let me bring you on. Even, when I see them, and, for those that don't know, me and Dr. Martin are both deacons at a church. And so there's different things that we do. And, one of the things I admired about you is that you bring your boys on the assignment to do things. They're like, hey, we busting down tables, y'all busting down tables too. y'all are part of this process, so, but I see you teaching them, having teachable moments and having those experiences. But, I think at the same time, sometimes as kids, we don't appreciate things until we get older and we start doing our own thing, and I felt like that with my father. It was like, now I see, our conversations are different now, and I'm sure with your grandfather, as you got older and was building the family, you had different conversations with him, like, because you started really understanding what he was telling you because you're experiencing it more now. You may not have got it in the beginning, but you started getting it later on.
Yeah, all right. So there was there was a moment where, when you're young, you're kind of impetuous, and I had to work on a farm with him one summer. My mom dropped me off in Halls, Tennessee. It's about an hour outside of Memphis.
Okay.
And she took me and my sister and went to Halls, and I had to go to the farm with him. And man, he got up like, early in the morning, sun not quite out. And I had to go out of the farm with him, and I had to cut the yard and all. And man, I thought my mama sent me to slavery. I was like, man, come on. The mosquitoes are eating me alive. I was like, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong at home for you to send me here? And the only time I got to go out and play, I got to go out and play basketball with some friends, that was in the neighborhood that I knew, coming to Halls from time to time. But and I don't know if I know the story, the whole saying, when you keep coming in and out of the house, like, you can't come in and out of the house, you stay in or go out. And so so he put my aunt put a cooler outside for me to because I kept coming in and out of the house because it was so hot.
Right.
But my granddaddy, man, he had me working with him, and he paid me to do it. It wasn't much. It wasn't nothing, man. He gave me, I don't remember, like $10 or something.
Wow.
So, it wasn't much, man. He didn't get no money.
How old were you?
I don't know, about 12, 13.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Doing a whole lot. You go to the store and get you some chips and a drink and some a Snickers or something. That's about it.
Yeah. But he did. But the reason why I brought this up is because he really didn't do it to show me, to pay me. He did that to show me the importance of hard work.
Work ethic.
And that work ethic, man, that kicked in with me, man. So that's why I do that with my sons. I tell my sons, if you see a man working, if you can, it's in your power to help him, help him. Mm-hmm. Don't just see a man working if you can't. Like if I'm busting down tables, why are you sitting there? Right.
But it's funny but you see people males, who haven't had that kind of exposure or experience, and they'll sit around chilling and watching you doing stuff, and they won't even jump in and help. Like, man, but some people just raised differently, and
yes, they were.
That is part of the generational differences that we see now. I think we try to keep certain things going, and I don't see anything wrong with traditional. My wife and I talk about that all the time. Like, there's certain situations where we seem to be very traditional and not forward thinking, because we're like, no, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. These are, hard work. You're going to learn how to take the trash out and do stuff, stuff that you should be doing versus, I'm doing it all the time, and or she's having to do it. I told my son, like, he knows how to open the door for his mom, and like, if you with her and she got to get gas, you better be out there pumping that gas, because again, that's just one of those things. I can't stand seeing a man or a young boy that's sitting in the car, his mom out there in the cold pumping gas or in the heat pumping gas, and they sitting there chilling on their phone. I'm like, and I've seen grown men doing it. I'm like, why is that? I don't care if it's not your car. You still get your butt out there and pump the gas. But I get frustrated, but then I got to understand everybody hasn't been taught those things, how to be a man. So, let me think it's ingrained, but it's not.
No, it is not. When I started writing this, one of the things I said is, that fathers, I said mothers are valuable, but fathers are invaluable. Mm. All right. So we as men have to show our sons and our daughters what a good man is, or else it's going to be trial and error.
Right.
You have daughters. I don't have any daughters, but I've always told my sons, you're going to marry someone else's daughter one day, and you need to treat her as I treated your mom. You know, they know I love her. They know there's no question that I love her. And everything that we do, you know, we show affection. We show affection in front of them. Open the door for her. We hold hands in public. All that kind of stuff. That you know that may be seen as cheesy sometimes. Because some men think, you know, and that's in my book as well. The more notches you got on your belt, the more of a man you are. You know, the more chicks you got, the more of a man you are. The more money you got, the more of a man you are. And that's far from the truth. You know, Minister Martin said once, he said there's a difference between boyhood and manhood. And so you can be, you know, you can be a grown man, but still be in boyhood. You've never grown up, you know, and we got a lot of that, man. I saw this cat, this older gentleman, man, sagging, man. He had to be around 38. I'm like,
I've seen
yo,
them
you
older
know,
than that. And I know because they my
I haven't
age.
seen
I'm
that.
like,
I haven't
I've
seen
seen
that.
them. Man, look, you know, and again, I look and I always had this look of like, and I have to snap back, like, I don't know what their background is, but I know I'm like, look, I know they older than me. You know, I'm like, I'm 43. I know these jokers are older than me, and but it's some of it that says culture, whatever the case may be.
Well, you and I are gonna disagree on that.
No, well, I don't agree with it. I'm just saying, no, I'm not agreeing with it. To me, I'm like, come on now. At some point, you gotta grow up. But I see it all the time. You got these 50, 60-year-old players who are alone and they looking at themselves. They got money and everything else, with nobody to really share it with. You know,
that's right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's very important to understand the role of a father.
Oh yeah.
And so in your book, it sounds like you're also, you know, really focusing on you talking about, you know, like the role of your grandfather that he had in your life, not having your biological father there, you know, throughout. But then it seems like there is a transition in that you seeing God as that person, that thing that was missing, you know, for you.
Mm-hmm. When I first came to Living Truth, well, I've always been in church, but I haven't always been. Let me change that. I've been churched all my life. My mom always took us to church.
Right.
But there was, and I went to Bible study, you know, the old little small pamphlets they used to have with the little black people on the front. Yes. So we had all that. And I had to be in, you know, children's choir. So I've done all that. And I've been in church pretty much all my life. But I didn't understand purpose. I didn't understand what the word meant to me. I knew the Bible was important, but I didn't really see myself in it. You know what I'm saying? And so when I went to MTSU, went to the Baptist Student Union, there was more of an understanding of what the Bible was to me, and what it, you know, how the and what the word is supposed to mean to me. But it wasn't until I met Apostle that it started making sense to me in a practical way what the word is supposed to do. And then when I started reading the word and I started seeing myself in it, I saw how much God loved me. And, you know, we all seen the scriptures, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. You know that scripture. But I had to see myself in that. Mm-hmm. I said, God loved me so much that he gave his precious just for me. And I'm like, man, I'm not worth it. And I had a whole different view of it. I was like, wow. And so when he showed me what the word really was, my mom and everyone saw just an immediate change. I mean, it wasn't a slow change. It was an immediate change because I was just engulfed in it, and I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more, and I finally started seeing God as my father, and not God as this being that, although he created, right, untouchable, unattainable, that he created everything, but it was never personal. You know, I'm just a guy here on earth that God created, but he didn't really, you know, he cared about his people, he cared about his children, but not to the point where I can come to him and call him Abba Father. You know, I didn't know what that stuff meant. Yeah. But then when I started getting an understanding of it, I started seeing God as my father and how much he loved me. And that's when I said that hole that my dad left me, left can be filled with God the Father. And that's what really started the healing process. And I'm like, you know, even if my dad never came to another graduation, I know God is with me. If he didn't celebrate another time with me, I know God is with me. He was at, you know, my dad, my biological father, he told me once, and it meant a lot to me. He told me this. He said, I don't know where you're getting all this stuff from. I don't know where you're getting this love for God from. I don't know how you became the man you are. Because he said, you didn't get any of that from me. You're a much better man than me. Keep it up because I love you. And I was
That's
like, you
big.
know, yeah.
That's big for, because, you know, a lot of people get into those situations and, you know, they don't want to admit stuff like that, you know, because it's humbling. It's like, wow, he thrived and I wasn't even a part of this. I had nothing to do with this. But he acknowledged that and was like, you know, to say, I'm proud of you. I know that probably meant more to you than he probably even knew what it meant at that time.
It did, and that was actually not too long ago, really. Um, he still has his. We still have our moments and whatnot, but that's just people being people.
Right.
And it helped me to see him for who he was. That I still love him, because if it wasn't him, I wouldn't be in this world. And so I had to forgive him. I had to still love him and respect him as my father.
That's big in itself.
Yes. And that took my brother. That took a while to get to that point.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point in my life, when he would call, I just look at him like, and move on.
Right.
You know, like I ain't, for what? So what you calling me for? What? For what? And so I had to learn how to heal from all that. And Apostle even told me once, he said, man, you can't be like that. You know, you can't be like that. And I was like, man, please. You don't know this man. So,
you know, but he, you know, the interesting thing about him is him and his transparency, he's experienced the same thing, right?
yes.
So, you know, that's again something else that you can take with the lessons that he's teaching. While it's practical, it's some of the same experiences that he's had. So, you know, he knows what he's talking about. You know, everybody's going to have different emotions and process things differently, but I think
Yeah.
what you're saying and what he's saying, and what, you know, people in this situation who find God and understand their relationship with God. Because I think when you mentioned earlier, you know, you did all the ceremonies and exercises and everything that came with church when you were younger, but the one thing that was missing was that relationship. And that's one of the things I think Apostle really teaches, is that relationship. Because when you have that, all the other religion and all the other stuff doesn't really matter. It's your
It doesn't.
relationship with him, and that's where your need is met. So you can begin healing, and then you can honor your father, forgive him, honor him, you know, because you don't know what he experienced as a child, you know, or what things may have
Yep.
happened to
Yep.
lead him to be the person that he wound up being, you know, during those times.
You know, you're right. I don't. I mean, he never really talked about it. He always said that his mom was a hard person and whatnot, and she was a very a very much an affectionate woman, and
Mm.
so I get that. But you know, when you're a kid, you don't
Yeah.
really
Oh yeah.
care. You don't care. You know, like,
No.
you're supposed to be my dad. Um, I had to repent to some of my brothers at the church and whatnot, because they would talk about, how their dad was important to them and all the rest of that. And man, when they'll talk about that, man, I had godly jealousy, man. And I was like, man, yo, I don't know. I don't even know what that feels like. I don't know what that feels like. I was like, I don't know how to relate to that, until and because the healing process takes a while, it does. And there are scars that kids get when they're younger, that all they do is a band-aid thing, and there are little things that happen that rips that band-aid off, and that wound opens up all over again.
Yeah.
And it happens over and over again until you really get healed through God the Father, to really be healed, And there was a situation that happened in my life. And again, I've already published this book. My dad, he had moved away. He moved away to South Carolina, and he told all my siblings, but he didn't tell me. He just disappeared, and it again brought me all the way back to the 8-year-old boy,
Yeah.
who didn't know where his father was.
Disappointment.
And now my dad, the man who I leaned on, was gone. My grandfather. And my dad didn't have the wherewithal to call me and say, hey, I'm moving, and just disappeared. And so my brother called me and said, hey, dad's gone. He moved to Carolina. And I was like, I said, he didn't say bye. And so again, it brought me back all over again.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, when am I going to heal from this? And when my wife, God bless her, my wife is awesome. She talked to my dad and said, you don't understand how much you hurt him when you do that. And he was like, he's all right. He's a grown man. She said, but you're his father and you're always going to be his father. And he wants your approval. He said, you've got to stop doing that. And so after that, man, and that was around 4 or 5 years ago, I guess. And well, no, I guess it was sooner than that. It was sooner than that. And he, we talked about that, and he said, I didn't know you felt that way. Of course, I was like, come on, man.
You wanted him to know it, but he didn't know it, but you weren't verbalizing that, were you, to him?
I wasn't. I mean, I kind of figured that it'd be common for a man to know his son was missing, regardless of how old he is.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and that was I guess that was some fault on both of our sides. And we talked and whatnot, and we're in a good space. But man, those are some moments, man, that when I see young men at my school or whatever that don't have fathers, and I have a lot of them, white, black, Hispanic, man, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And when I talk to these young men, I'm like, man, look, you got to be better than your dad was, because that's what he will want for you. He'll want you to be better, even if you don't ever vocalize it. He wants you to be better. Of course, man, it's hard to get through some of that pain though.
Yeah,
because pain builds walls.
It does. And when you just suppress a lot of the emotions, I think that for you is being able to get it out and start the healing process. Like you said, you had to repent. You said you repented to folks at, brothers at the church because of their experience and having, godly jealousy over it. But for you to admit that, that's part of the healing. Like, I do feel that. I acknowledge that I felt this way. I acknowledge that, these things or these emotions are in me. And sometimes that's the start of the healing process, because if you're not going to acknowledge it, you're not going to accept that this is where it is. I'm hurt. Saying I'm hurt, your dad knowing, or you telling your dad, or your wife telling your dad, like, this hurts, this hurts him. This hurts your son when you do this. And he's like, well, I didn't realize it hurt you, and you assume like he should know. But just like how we are, guys are, we like, man, he should know, and then just leave it at that. And then once he knows, he's like, okay, I got to look at this. Because I think from his perspective, he's probably looking at, I may still have an opportunity to salvage some relationship, and I know how he feels. He's probably like, he's been thriving without me, so why does he care? And you're like, but you're my dad. I need to, I want to know this. I want you to still be a part of my life. So that's what a good wife would do. They like, look, I'm gonna protect mine. I'm gonna make sure they understand, because guys can be done with some of that stuff. Like,
yeah, I don't do well with emotion, man. I'm not that emotional person.
Yeah.
Well, my wife, man, she bounces that out.
So she's like, look, all that tough stuff, like, she sees the hurt, and she's like, I don't want that hurt to keep lingering, because it not only impacts, the relationship with your dad and you, but it's impacting the marriage. It impacts your relationship with your sons. It has a lingering effect. So
it did, actually. It did, man. My oldest son, Martin, and I we had a very rough beginning of our relationship when he started becoming a teenager, and I thought it was just teenage angst.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this. He was around 12 years old, and I was fussing at him about something. And he said, and I'm not gonna get emotional this time. He said, Dad, do you even like me? And I was like, oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah.
And so I was like, of course I like you. You're my son. And he's like, then why are you always yelling at me? And I was like, man, I didn't know I was doing that. I thought I was being a good parent, trying to keep him from making mistakes over again, because as they changed, I had to adjust. I didn't know how to do that. Again, my dad wasn't in the house to tell me how to do that. My grandfather was just, my way or the highway kind of man. So I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
So I had to figure that one out. Like, what do I do? Because I don't want to isolate my son. I don't want to sever the relationship because I need him to be able to come to me and be okay to come to me.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
I've had that moment too with especially Trey, he's 15 going on
wow.
16. And, it was one of those things where my wife had to sit me down and say, look, you need to quit being so hard on him, because my thing is, I guess it was always, I had this thing of, I expect great things and I expect more from you. So I'm hard on you because of that, because I expect you, I know you can do better, this, that, and the other. And sometimes there's been times where it's just like, I just give him a hug, because he had a bad day or something. I just give him a hug, don't even say anything. He just breaks down and cries. And I'm like, I get it. I have to have that moment. It can't just be, because you always hear people like, oh, you got to be a man. You got to, do this to your sons and, make them tough and this, that, and the other. And that's the worst thing that that's the worst thing that you can do, because you're telling them that you can't show emotion. You can't,
Right.
you can't feel, any kind of pain. You just got to suck it up and keep moving. And that's why we have these generations of kids who don't know how to express themselves, so.
You're right. Well, you're right. I mean, they express themselves violently. It's
Mhm.
an explosion.
Right.
It's never a gradual. It's a 0 to 100. Boom. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
I
And
just
Sap,
I just told you to slow down. It's just
yeah.
don't run through the hallway.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right, man. And man, it is so important for men to realize how they affect their children and the lineage. So with me telling my kids that I'm wrong, or when I apologize to Martin because of how I treated him, that showed him that I'm also make mistakes, and I'm willing to say I'm sorry. You know, and he cried, I cried, my wife crying, and we all hugging each other, and we're like,
But that's
man,
healing. I mean, that's healing, and it's breaking cycles, it's breaking cycles of things that you didn't have that opportunity to do that with your father,
I
and
did not.
you're creating, now you're opening up the doors. Now you got your son, he's in college now, so that's a different part of the relationship, because now he's experiencing different things. He's a young adult now, and figuring that out, same thing with my daughter. I'm the daddy-daughter relationship is a little different. So I'm
I
still
gotta
very
figure.
protective, but I got to learn to let things go and let her grow and all that good stuff. But our conversations change now. It's a little different. It's still, I still command my respect as a father and this, that, and the other. But now it's just different, because as you have to start learning how to make decisions on your own. A lot of the stuff that we've been teaching you, this is where you have to put them into play. This is what college is about. It's kind of that bridge into adulthood. This is opportunity for you to learn and grow, so that hopefully we did what we needed to do, and you move out, you get to your own space and understanding, how to navigate through life. We're still here. We're always going
Right.
to be help guide you and give you advice, or just be a sounding board. But it's getting to that next place. But that's where fathers can help. And I think that's what you're saying. Like, this is the importance of a father. This is the importance of that relationship with God the Father.
It is, and I know I can feel time getting away from us, but I was looking at there's a section that I wrote, and that I love reading, and this, I know it's my own book, but there's a section I love reading, and I don't know if you have seen the movie Gladiator with
Yeah.
Russell Crowe.
Mhm.
All right, so there's a part in there where he's fighting through like these this gauntlet of guys to get to his main objective. He's fighting. So there's a part where the king comes down and says, "I must see who you are. I want to see who you are as the gladiator." So he turns around and takes off his helmet, and he says, "I'm Maximus Decimus Meridius, uh, husband to a murdered wife, father to a murdered son." He said, "And I will get my vengeance in this life or the next." And I thought it was the best line in the world.
Yeah.
Because I was like, he is willing to die for his family by any means necessary, to die for his family, to get the just deserts that he believes that they're due. And so when I saw that, I said, every man needs to be this way. every man needs to be this way to their family. Now, not taking vengeance against people, but have to work as hard as they can to ensure that the life of their family is the best possible godly lifestyle that they should be able to have. Whatever it takes, you know. If it's going to school, then do it. If you're working and trying to get your career going or your business going, and you got to stay up late, sometimes that's what you got to do. You got to have multiple streams of revenue, man. Do that thing, whatever it takes to give them the life that they deserve. That's what you do. And so when I think about that, man, every brother that I've been connected to, yourself, Chuck and other people, Gusson, I believe they embody that, where their family is better because they're in it, not better because they're not. And that's the way it's supposed to be. The man, the chief prophet and king of the household is better because he's there. And as long as the king's on watch, the home is fine. As long as he's following God the Father and God the Father's leading, then the home is going to be fine. And even the legacy.
That's key. That's key. That he's following the king, the Father, God the Father.
I had to put that in.
And that is a key thing. So no, I appreciate you, Dr. Burgess. Again, the book is In My Father's Image, Living Your Best Life Through the Word of God. For those on YouTube, you can see it there. I'll have the link included. So please go get the book. Guys, it's $9.99. Go out there, buy the book. It is going to be worth it. You see the emotion that he has, so he's passionate about what he's talking about. And I want to make sure it's important. We talked about education, but we also talked about the importance of fathers. And that's one of the things that I'm very big on, especially is just the role of a father and not just a father, but just a man being in the family's life. So here's another example of how he somebody who overcame not having his biological father there and going through life, still being the best that he could, and then healing through that process with his sons, with his family. To me, this is really what we need to hear about. These are the times, these are the situations that, help us grow and lets us know that we're not defined by our past. We're not defined by the environments we grow up in. We can always break out and be better. And we're supposed to be better. So Dr. Burgess, again, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for joining, man. Man,
hey, I enjoyed it, man. You can call me anytime, man. I had a good time and I appreciate you, brother, man.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you. We're going to talk a little bit more about this educational piece. I know we can sit on here for hours and talk about that. And I didn't want to go too deep, but we will definitely, I will have another episode because I want to get you. I want to get both Dr. Deems on here. I got all these doctors that are in the, either administration or in the teaching side of the house. And I want to talk a little bit, have a deeper kind of roundtable about education in the US and really just dig into a little bit more. We scratched the surface on it. I talked a little bit about it with Dr. Deems when we talked about HBCUs, but I just want to really dig into education because I think that's an important part of our growth and really from the kingdom perspective, what we're supposed to be taking over. So
it is.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening today. Like I said, the book is available on Amazon. I'll have the link shared in the bio. Also, we'll put it in the YouTube description. So go out there and get it. Dr. Martin Burgess, In My Father's Image, Living Your Best Life Through the Word of God. Remember, as kingdom citizens, you are supposed to live your best life possible because that's what's being an heir. And as an heir, you are created to flow in everything that God has planned and purpose for your life. So flow on, signing off.